Mr. Raghav Mittal. He's the head from Big Indie Band and New Initiatives. And for the panelists, first we have Mr. Gurpreet Singh. He's the co-founder and CEO from One Digital Entertainment. Ms. Rachna Kanwar, she's the CEO, Digital Media, Radio City and Midday Jagran Prakashan. Mr. Sagar Gokhale, he's the Chief Operating Officer from QKey. And Ms. Indra Rangarajan, she's the National Head Director from Radio Mirchi. Welcome, everyone. Now, I would request all the delegates to please keep posting their questions in the chat box, and we will address selected few questions by the end of the session. Over to you, Raghav.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. How are you doing?
Hey, Raghav.
As good as we can in these times, Raghav.
I think it's pretty cool that I get some of the most distinguished people in the music industry to talk about indie music. I think I started my journey as an indie artist about nearly 10 years ago, and it's come a long way. And I think you people have seen the journey and the evolution of it. So very, very glad that we get to sort of pick your brains about how the buzzword of indie has sort of evolved over the years. I think my first question to all of you is the fact that I think over indie has a very different connotation towards the word, but when it comes to India, where film music sort of seems to be ruling the roost, I think indie's sort of taken different shapes and forms along the years, right? I think I'd like to open it up with just asking you about how you define indie. Is it non-film music? Is it independent artists which have no label backing them? I'd just love to sort of pick your brain about that. Gurpreet, why don't we start off with you, and then I think let's take it over.
Hi, Raghav. Raghav, like you rightly mentioned, I mean, I think the music scene has primarily in globally it is said to be mainstream and the independent music. In India, the mainstream means Bollywood music. At least till a few years back, everything that we hear in the mainstream music business has been the Bollywood music, and anything which started coming outside the Bollywood music, backed by labels or backed by independent artists sitting at home, launching their YouTube channels and putting their content completely on their own, started getting categorized into the independent music scene, which technically is just Bollywood and the indie scene as such. Though these are great times where independent music today, in some places, for some songs, are as big as Bollywood, which is very exciting for, I think, not only for the talented musicians, people like you, but also for everyone else in the business, including, I'm sure Sagar will agree, and everyone from the radio and the TV industry as well.
Yep, completely agree with you, Gurpreet. I think the journey has been amazing. Like Gurpreet pointed out, like you pointed out, Raghav. I think it really started between two kind of simple ideas: what is Bollywood music, and what is maybe a label investing in pop, or even a simple artist starting his YouTube channel and going about it. I think which is not the true definition of indie music, but this is how it kind of broke out in India, right? And today one can very easily say maybe 4 years back this was not the scene, but today labels are really backing pop artists, independent artists. I think even some of the YouTubers, those who have kind of created a space for themselves, and between QKey and One Digital, we manage such artists, right? I think they really have an audience which they really don't need to take cash from other people. They can really produce this music themselves, create a music video and put it out there. And it has a fairly significantly large audience which wants to consume this music. And it's not really categorized into ye indie hai, ye tech hai. It's actually good music. And that's how it's working in India right now. It's pretty much, it's good music, and it has an audience that it's going out to.
So Raghav, I've been fortunate enough to kind of witness it from the 90s onwards, when I was, with Times FM at that time. If we go back to that era, all music was defined by genres. So genres were defining. So there was Bollywood, and then there was indie pop with, Lucky Ali, Euphoria, Silk Route. There were rock bands, Parikrama, Indus Creed. Then Punjabi pop was really big, Daler Mehndi and, Malkeet Singh and all of these stars. And of course, there were a few other smaller genres like fusion, folk, Sufi. But I think the genres were restricted to just, a few. There weren't so many genres the way they are today. Even the artists were fewer. And because the artists were fewer, they got a lot of exposure in traditional media, right? So people were talking about them, writing about them. And that's when they became household names, right? And they became mainstream. They were not really indie the way indie is today. It was only in the mid 2000s when, due to various factors, really, the scene actually became the scene as it is today, right? As we know indie today. And that's when this entire collective, newer genres, languages, so many artists from across the country, they started to be called, indie artists. Um, Today, both the panelists earlier said that it's flourishing, it's so vast, right? And therefore, it's very difficult to define it in a sentence. But I think simply, if you have to put it in a sentence, then you would say it's non-film music across languages.
Very interesting what everybody's been saying. I'd just like to figure out, to talk about how we want to really define it and from whose point of view is this definition. If you look at it from a point of view of an audience, it doesn't matter to them whether it's label back or it's Bollywood. What matters to them is the kind of content, the kind of music that is, and how it appeals to them at an emotional level. The definition of indies, I think, has come about because of the gatekeepers. Earlier traditional media used to be the gatekeepers, so they would filter out, including like radio and TV, etc. Our initial exposure to, the Duba Dubas and the Bulla Ki Janas, the world came from, television, and then much later after that, radio. So they were gatekeepers earlier. Right now, because the fact that you have, all of these platforms available, people can make their own music. So therefore, the definition, is a bit redundant, I think, at this point of time. Another example is that, right in the beginning, when Badsha came about, there was a song called Chul, right? So that was an independent song. And then it was moved, it was taken over Kapoor and Sons, and it became, it got into a Bollywood film. So there again, the lines are blurring. So maybe if we were to stop defining it in these very, very sort of, strict genres and silos, then you would find that some of these are not important at all. The definition is not important. What's important is the popularity and the emotional attachment to this. And I think new media is really kind of helping promote and push that out. So as far as we are concerned, if you look at it from a radio-based perspective, right now there are no boundaries. A popular song is a popular song, and it doesn't really matter whether it's coming from a Bollywood film or it's an independent song. Like a Ritzvik's song we played, or we played Yenda Fool, and it doesn't matter where it came from. So I think that's an important distinction to make about the gatekeepers earlier and now the reopening of that different channels that are available for artists today to explore their talent.
Yeah, I think Indira has summarized it very well. Because in 90s, if you look back, like Rachna mentioned, some of the pop stars which were big in the non-Bollywood scene, right? And for me personally, those are my favorite music times when you get to listen to music outside Bollywood as well. But again, they were the gatekeepers who were allowing that music to be played on radio and TV. Hence, they became the mainstream. And I think in 2000, in fact, independent music got killed because, again, the gatekeepers, the radio and the TV, they stopped supporting independent music. They only prioritized Bollywood music, and hence labels stopped investing into independent music, right? And the musicians didn't have a way out to put out the music on any platform as such. And those are the times now, I think, thanks to internet, thanks to platforms like YouTube and many other platforms, now the control is back with the musicians. who can create some crazy music at their home, just put it up, just from, I mean, without even investing any money into music videos, just put it out there, and companies like us will reach out to them. Gatekeepers like radio stations and channels like TV channels, they will reach out to them. And we have had a lot of case studies in the last few years where either we have reached out to TV channels and radio stations to play out the music, or at times the song has become big on its own and they have reached out. Now I think that's very fascinating for the current musicians. If there are any musicians listening right now, that technically right now you don't need the backing of a label, you don't need the backing of or any gatekeeper as such, and you can just put out the music, and if it relates, if it works for people, all of us will reach out to you.
Another important thing I think
Right.
is to discuss is discoverability, right? The whole thing is that there is all this content. So while yes, we were the big bad gatekeepers of the world, but the traditional media also facilitates discovery. So to that extent,
Absolutely.
becoming
I would.
gatekeepers, becoming curating the music and presenting in front of a much larger audience. That role is also still being played. What has happened is the lines have blurred. For us, the definition no longer is indies versus Bollywood. It's just, popular music versus, unfamiliar and, stuff which is in the fringes, really.
Yeah, I think the issue is
Slight correction here, Gurpreet. So you mentioned that 90s, it was really flourishing on traditional media. I would just like to correct you there that it was not radio which was playing this kind of music at that time. So private
TV.
FM really came. Yes, private FM came only in 2001.
But
With Radio City in Bangalore. So
Yeah.
it was the television and print. These were the mediums which were really propelling it at that point.
Yeah, primarily TV.
But
Yes.
to drive the point home, see, whenever there is oversupply, obviously there is a need for a curator, right? And that need will always arise. There will always be a show host who plays the best music. There will always be influencers in the space who will recommend music. But I think what's exciting right now, like what Gurpreet was saying, is that these platforms have algorithms. If your content works, it will reach the people, right? And big media houses want and players like us, if somebody's song is cracking, we will reach out to you. So the artist really doesn't need to do anything but create that magical track. And even if it's not scaled, it doesn't have millions of views, even if it has 10,000 views and great engagement, people like us will reach out to them, right? So I think that there is where the real change in the industry has come about, and technology has become cheap. So today you don't need to hire a big studio to record your song. You could pretty much buy a mic in your house and you're set. So I think these are the changes which have really happened and pushed independent music really far.
No, makes sense. I have a quick question for Sagar and Gurpreet. I think you've sort of worked with so many new creators. I think both new media companies, short form content, and YouTube have been at the core of this indie movement, right? How would you sort of say that the goals have sort of changed over the years, right? I think when YouTube started out, things would have been very different, right? Not a lot of labels, for example, paid too much attention to the platform. Short form content in the last probably 4 to 5 years has actually become a big way that labels market their songs, but they've been around for a while. How do you think that benchmark, how have the platforms changed over time to sort of drive more discoverability? Is that democratization of content, the statement, does that still hold true for a lot of these short content platforms and YouTube when there are labels pouring in money, when Bollywood films are using all their sort of muscle to sort of make sure that their content is heard and reached?
Gurpreet, should I start?
Yeah. Go ahead, Sagar. Go ahead.
So see, I think these two questions are very different questions because the way to build an audience on YouTube has been very different. If you're a musician, the way you're building that audience is with consistency, with good content, and creating a community around yourself, right? And I think the really good ones have really managed to do that very consistently, right? And then obviously they have charted new journeys, like somebody like a Darshan Rawal, who's become or a Sanam band. They've become massive hits. Either they've decided to stay independent or they've gone and joined a label. But they've really consistently built their brand on YouTube, right? Which is with first, the first wave of YouTube was really doing covers. Then the next wave came with original music. I think it's about 2 years old. And people really carefully built their brands on these platforms. Short format is a completely different ball game, so to speak, because when you were producing content on YouTube, you were shooting that content, you were recording your songs. Whereas on short format platforms, I think the biggest powerful tool over there is that your mobile is everything, right? So you can pretty much lip sync a song, you can do anything that you want to, and engaging a user. The whole game on a short format platform is that how many hours does a user stay watching amazing content. So when labels are marketing their content over there, they're just marketing those hook lines which influencers are kind of mouthing. So it's a completely different way of building sort of a play over there. And just to give you an example, right, without any marketing, there was this track, the first hit on a short format platform was this song called Isme Tera Ghata, right?
Yeah.
It was not induced, like no label was backing it, no big players were backing it, nobody paid any money. It just got picked up on a short format platform, and suddenly the next thing that we know, it's got hundreds of millions of views on YouTube because people really loved the hook line, came back to YouTube, searched for the song, and kind of the song became really popular. The way I discovered it was number one for a month on Shazam, right? So I think these things have started happening because at the end of the day, and the two sort of veterans of the industry are also here. Back in the TV days, the most important thing was to hammer the hook line home, right?
Yes.
What is the hook line of the song? Which is the opportunity that a short format platform gives you. It's 15 seconds, hammer your hook line home, and if the audience likes it, they're going to go to YouTube or any streaming platform and search for the song. And I think that's how this whole thing is working. So the
I think
two journeys,
a lot of labels are also asking musicians to write that and to create that primarily first short form, and then we'll see what happens.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Very interesting example you gave, Sagar, because we used Tera Ghata actually
Yeah.
for a campaign that we were doing with the Delhi police. And, he was sweet enough to give us that song, and we used that, saying that if you are breaking traffic rules, I mean, that's how radio works, right? We create stories.
Yeah.
And that's how we hook up, not only play songs, but we create a lot of buzz around artists.
No, super. And see, it got culturally absorbed, right? Once those short formats sort of, and it acts because of that, because radio is a medium which can really raise awareness. So once you attach a good cause to it, the song really grows. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think primarily still on digital platforms, the music gets consumed on YouTube and the streaming platforms, right? Short format apps, be it YouTube Shorts or any other else, they are just new surfaces to reach out to people, right? I mean, if I don't think from an influencer point of view, because the discussion is primarily about music, then as a someone from the music business, for us, all the short formats are just a marketing platforms, right? People are not going on the short format platforms to consume music. They are going there for entertainment or something else, right? People who are going to consume music are still on YouTube or streaming platforms, or for that matter, listening to radio or something through TV channels, right? They are not going to short format apps to consume music as such. They are going there for entertainment or for educational content, and in that they discover music, they discover those crazy hook lines, right? They discover or they get hooked up to something, and then they go and eventually consume music on YouTube and streaming platforms. So Raghav, to answer your question, has YouTube is still the primarily leader in getting music consumed and discovered? Yes. Has YouTube completely redefined and built the independent music scene, contributed the maximum amount of efforts into the independent music scene? The answer is yes. It was a couple of years back. It still is. Obviously, streaming platforms are coming up. People are now getting used to download more apps and consume music. They now know how to create playlists. It's much better, but there's still a journey. Till date, YouTube still, I mean, because it's not just about making a hit song. If you talk about commercials, if you talk about revenues, if you talk about going and doing eventually live shows, if you look at the entire business in a holistic way, YouTube is still the biggest value add.
Sure, thank you for that. I think I want to ask a question to Rachna and Indira. I think both your platforms have had some kind of a stake in indie, right? Rachna, while Radio City
Yeah,
Freedom has been doing this consistently for a number of years now, built an awards which also sort of
Yes.
facilitates some artists, build some kind of an aspiration. While Indira, Mirchi Indies is something that has been sort of really, really pushing the envelope when it comes to indie. How do you think the user, the traditional user who's consumed Bollywood for so many years, how do they react to this kind of new music, new artists that they've never heard of, music that they've not heard through a film? How do they react to it, and what is the sense that you're currently getting?
So I think, good music is good music, right? Like Indira also mentioned earlier, that it's not about, whether it is indie or Bollywood or any genre for that matter. If you're playing music, if the content is good, then the listeners are going to like it, right? Like you said, we have created a lot of content, a lot of IPs, a lot of different formats in which we serve indie on radio. Like we have something called Freedom Hits. Right now, we pepper our shows with that. So it's not that we're creating something separately for indie, so people have to tune in at a certain time and listen to it. We are actually playing at any time, during all hours in all our 39 stations, right? And that could be Hindi, that could be regional music, that could be anything. Basically, it's discoverability, right? If people are listening to that again and again, it becomes popular. It's not about it being popular first and then only you play, right? Sometimes it's good content which you feel that it is really going to work, and you pick up that content and play it again and again and make it popular. I think that's what used to happen even the decades that we talked about. What was it? It was frequency on all of these traditional television channels. These songs, Bulla, or anything for that matter, they were playing again and again. I mean, Bulla, people didn't understand the lyrics until and unless they really read out the
Absolutely.
words. So that's what we are trying to create. Apart from that, of course, we have something called Freedom Hour, which is more for interviews and conversations and jamming with the artists. We have, of course, Radio City Freedom Awards. For that, for about 2-3 months, we create a lot of buzz on all our stations again across the country. We bring talent from across the country on radio, and talk to them and really expose their talent as much as possible. So I think when people get to hear all of this, they gradually kind of start liking it, and they don't distinguish whether it is indie or it's film or it's folk or what is it. They just want good music, and that's what we are trying to do.
Yeah, so I agree. A small bit of digression or a differentiation that I have is that see, radio primarily works on familiarity. So, as people who are programming for radio, that is a very, very important metric that one needs to use. So if you even if the song is great, but it is completely unfamiliar to the audience, they're likely to switch off. So we have to create an environment in which this song is presented to them, is introduced to them. It's not just thrown into the playlist where they have no idea where it's come from. Therefore, you need to have surround sound programming for that particular track or album or so on and so forth. And therefore, you would say that radio station will tend to pick artists that are already big from, say, the Bollywood space who are also doing independent music. So it will still safer side. I mean, they are not that experimentative that any song will feature in the thing, because that's not the whole and soul of radio. When you get into the car and you want to listen to something that you know, and you want to hum along with it. So to that extent, it is a little bit more sort of the work on picking the track is a lot more effort in figuring out the track in terms of the soundscape. Does it match with the soundscape? Is it too experimentative? Are people going to be in the moods? For instance, I'll just give an example. We might not launch a song which is very new on a Monday, because the mood on a Monday is for us, for very different. You'll find many of these experiments happening on a weekend. So psychologically, I don't want to learn something new on a Monday when I have. So some amount of psychology, some amount of understanding where the artist is, the sound of the track, is it marrying with the rest of the Bollywood content that's out there, etc. So that's something that we look at. Having said that, there is a lot of room that to experiment, and we are creating sort of digital IPs to support radio. So if you look at Mirchi Indies, it's not just Mirchi Indies on radio. It's going to be a Mirchi Indies YouTube channel. We have a Mirchi Indies web radio channel, which is on Ghana. So this entire ecosystem will now support the art. So we might not be able to give them a lot of rotations on radio, but we'll be able to give them a lot of support in many of these IPs, along with the kind of the thrust of the RGs and influencers themselves.
Yeah.
So that's something that is really expanding. And over the past year, because Hollywood music has not been forthcoming, because the films are not released, etc., this has been the time for independent music to really kind of come into its own. So I'll just give you a data point. We've been doing the Mirchi Music Awards, as you would know. So there is an independent category in that. Every year we get entries, and it's gone up from 300 to 600 to 1,000 to 1,000 to almost 2,000 songs. That's the kind of increase we're seeing year on year in the entries to that. So I think when the supply increases, then there's a lot of other surround ecosystem that comes into play to either to curate or to create taste or to promote. So for us, we look at YouTube, we look at, like, say, Shazam, all the streaming sites, etc., as data points to see how familiar the song is. How well is it really doing for us to include. So that's the radio piece, of course. And like I said, many other pieces are coming together to promote independent music. So it's a very exciting time, really, for us also. To be able to give artists a lot more than just radio play.
Thank you. That was very insightful. I have another question for you. I think the term indie, right, normally comes with the sort of phrase cash trap, right? Because monetization is always an issue, right? While there is a streaming ecosystem in place, there is a YouTube piece in place. Live revenue is still sort of the only sort of source of income for most musicians in this country, right? And that hasn't changed in India, while in the West there are multiple sort of ways to sort of people are sort of making more money on streaming services. NFTs are something that are coming up. I think people have started monetizing through fan meet and greets and stuff like that. What do you think is happening in India? Do you think through YouTube streaming, radio plays is the sort of economic condition of independent music or industry in general sort of improving? What do you see the future holding for such independent artists? The top 30 artists still making?
Sorry, I didn't get your last question. Was that directed to me, or I didn't get the last question?
Did you lose me? Where did you lose me? Can you hear me?
The last part. We lost you at the last part.
I think it was just that are there going to be multiple sources of revenue? What do you think is the future for independent music? Is the industry going to grow, or is it going to be those top 30 artists who still continue making a lot of money, but the rest of the indie fraternity sort of struggles to make ends meet?
Oh, I'm so sorry. was it to me? Okay. So
I think it's for all of you. It's for all of you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll let the others answer it first, and then I'll come in.
So the way we see it, I think it's a very important question that you just asked, right? And I think over the last few years, monetization for an artist has nothing but grown. So the way we would categorize the monetization for an artist would be, first, obviously, was the YouTube revenue, which was one piece. Then brands started getting attracted to said artist because he had a huge audience. right? So he would start doing some projects for brands, larger projects for brands. That would be a second form of monetization. Once he has enough of an audience, he's getting booked for college gigs, he's getting booked for all sorts of gigs. The shadi market is a massive market in India, and right now there is a lot of demand for cool artists to be performing there also. That's an amazing place. And now, and I think this is the last 1.5 to 2 years, we see a lot of artists, because you have to remember, indie artists own their own music, right? So all the money that gets acquired on this comes directly to them. They're not sharing it with anybody, right? So I see a lot of artists planning their catalog really smartly and pushing it onto streaming platforms. And there also the monetization is great. And now publishing on those platforms has become extremely easy, right? You could just get a sort of a distributor in the middle, and all you need to do is just sort of pump all those tracks, and the ecosystem has really come up over there. So I think if your track is working, right, you are going to make a lot of money from that track, right? To answer your question, has it moved to a stage where a very small artist is also monetizing at the same level? No, I think we're still getting there, because we don't have enough performance spaces. We don't have the live culture in India yet, where, if you look at China, or you look at any of those other markets where, a lot of transaction happens on live platforms where people kind of log in to pay. That culture hasn't come in a massive way in India. Once that comes in, where people sort of get trigger happy with putting coins, gifts online, I think that will be one more form of monetization which will come towards this creator. Although in a small way, it has started on YouTube. So once the creator, to sum it up, if the creator owns his own asset, I think he can monetize it for a fairly long time. And now channels have just opened up.
I agree with Sagar. So I think the trick would be to really unplatform your content. So do not stick with probably one platform and just restrict it there, and distribute it in such a way that you are opening it out to many opportunities, right? So of course, people like us, traditional media can give it a lot of awareness. I mean, that's where we come in. Of course, when we go on digital, so there is a lot of scope and a lot of things that we do. Even on ground, we create a lot of live gig opportunities for artists. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. It's just that even the scene is growing, right? It's really becoming massive. So there is a lot of competition, and I think that's where the artists need to figure out how are they distributing it at many places, and therefore exposing it as much as possible.
I also think that they have to start looking at themselves as brands, because what does each artist stand for? It is always going to be a few artists in the top. I mean, let's be realistic about it. Not everybody is going to be making money here. There's competition. There are the big guns, and they are going to be muscling out the smaller guys. I mean, that's just any ecosystem. So, so it's important for them to position them, figure out what brand they stand for. A Raftaar stands for something. A Bacha stands for something. A Pratik Kuhad stands for something. So, if these artists have to also not just create music, but also work on their personal brands, so that then, they attract the kind of brands that want to kind of associate. So they are, as big, or they can be as big as Bollywood artists and celebrities, if they really work on that. And then the monetization, I guess, will happen wherever possible. Of course, smaller gigs, live gigs, that's something that we are always pushing for. The first thing that our network will suggest is that we do a concert or a music a jam session or whatever it is to clients. So therefore, we try and bring in and make sure that the artist gets their money, but it's primarily also on them to build the kind of brand that they need to going forward.
Yeah, I think like Indira mentioned, firstly, a musician, I mean, there were times when a job was just to go to a studio and make a song. That's pretty much, and then everyone else will take it up from them. These are not the times. If you have to survive in these times, you need to be entrepreneurs in yourself. You need to know how to build your own brand. You need to be present on every platform wherever the audience is, right? We deal with certain artists who also have reservations to do that, and they say we'll just create music and we won't be active on any platform. We won't make any efforts to get our music discovered. Whoever likes our music will come to us, right? Those are nice statements to make, unfortunately, but if you make those statements, then obviously you can't crib about revenues, right? And secondly, I think like Raghav, you mentioned that while there are top 30 artists who are making most of the money and the rest are not, I always I always debate on that particular point, because those 30 artists were pure independent artists a few years back, right? They have gone through their struggle, right? They have learned all these tricks to get their brand built, to get their content discovered, and now they have become the top 30 artists, right? They have reached a stage now after years of struggle to start making monetizing revenue, and whoever is behind them now, these are the times for them to start working. Either you can keep cribbing about royalties, less royalties be it from YouTube or be it from any other platform, or you can feel lucky that you are in a country where you won't just end up getting 40 million, 50 million views for a hit song. You might end up getting 100 million, 500 million for a hit song. And you can feel lucky that there's a country where there's such a heavy population of music. You can keep doing live concerts. You can you can monetize as much as you want, or you can just sit at home and just keep complaining about be it YouTube or be it radio station playing lesser royalties. But the control is in your own hands.
And that's true for, I think, every industry, right? I mean, if you look at Bollywood, there would be top 30 over there as well. The rest are not making as much money. It's true for YouTubers. It's true for anyone for that matter.
Yeah.
Sure.
Raghav, there are a few musicians that we work with who make much more revenues from brands than even their live shows, right? Now, because they have cracked how to work with brands, while they are not getting a lot of live shows, but they are doing a lot of brand business, right? It might not be their passion area, because obviously brands interfere. It might not be the passion area, but you need to have a hybrid of surviving and working purely for your passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think Gurpreet, you raised a really important point, which I want to sort of pick your brains about, which is the musician entrepreneur piece, right? A lot of musicians tend to, I think in the past also we've had musicians who've had a shelf life, right? You come in for 10 years, the longevity of a career sort of in the Indian scenario seems to be much shorter than the West, right? While a Bryan Adams and all of these Stings of the world will still elongate their career and play till they're 80. Indian musicians seem to, I don't know, it seems to have a shorter career span, right? And the awareness amongst musicians about rights and just awareness of being able to sort of sell their music upfront, understanding various publishing businesses, royalties, rights, etc. How has that changed based on the artists that you've interacted, say 10 years ago, to the new crop of artists, indie musicians who are coming out now? What has changed so dramatically, and how do we elongate the career shelf life for an artist?
Raghav, firstly, while I conveyed my point earlier, but also the thing revenue model. It is becoming a perfect revenue model for artists. A lot of societies, governments, and a lot of platforms are working hard to make it a very streamlined revenue model for artists. But like I said, that will still take some time, right? Either I can wait to launch my career in 3 years when it will be a perfect revenue model where I don't have to complain about anything, or I keep doing and making the best whatever I have right and wait for the perfect times to come. Also today it's not just about putting up a song, it's like Indian also mentioned, it's about building your own brand, building considering yourself not as a musician but also as an influencer, right? There are very blurry lines, whom you call as an influencer, whom you call as a singer, or whom you call as an actor, right? And using the opportunities and your fan base across this entire ecosystem, and figuring out how do you diversify into other system also. Like we work with Bacha, right? While he has put up certain songs as an independent artist earlier, and then Bollywood started discovering him. His independent songs started going into Bollywood, right? And he has built a brand of his own. And today he's diversifying into multiple other avenues. We run a digital web production house with him. He has his own merchandise line, which he's monetizing. He has stakes in nightclubs, which he's doing, all because of the brand he built riding on the music, but also diversifying into multiple other elements and not just purely thinking of him as a pure musician. Yes, that's what he wants to be, but also thinking himself as a musician, as a businessman and an entrepreneur.
Amazing. Sagar, do you want to talk about that as well?
I think, if the question is to monetize, right? I think all artists at the top end have to turn into entrepreneurs, right? Because that's how they sort of continue their legacy. That's how they stay relevant. And today, I think the most important part is that do you have an audience, right? Back in the day, if you were a TV channel, advertiser would come and pay you dollars to reach a certain million people. Today, these artists, via their Instagram pages, via their YouTube pages, via their Facebook pages, are reaching out to millions of people. Now, you need to have a dynamic business model which kind of changes with the times, right? And you should be able to service all of this inflow of business which is coming to you. I mean, today, there was a time when there was only one model that an advertiser would work with you in, which was that become my brand ambassador, right? And this is not very far back. This was 5 years back. You could only be a brand ambassador for a brand. In today's day and age, you could make a Reels video and associate with a brand, and that's good money, right? So you need to have a dynamic business model around you, or at least very smart people around you, those who know how to sort of capture these opportunities and make it into something really good. Like Gurpreet said, I think the largest movement right now, especially with hip hop artists or any kind of artist, is merchandising, right? That's a big play in the West, in India, where because these people feature themselves in music videos and they become sort of fashion icons, right? And people want to dress exactly like them. And and it's important for this artist to give people that opportunity by creating a clothing line, which you can just go online, shop, and I look like my favorite artist. So I think these are the models which are developing, and I think artist at the top of his trade needs to be really aware of what is happening. And even if you're building your career, you need to keep all of these things in your mind, because it's super important to build an audience on all of these platforms. To sum it up, that's it.
Got it. Indra, Rachna, do you want to say something about the longevity of artists? Why artists in India sort of don't manage to scale their careers for longer?
I don't really agree that they don't last. I mean, you can look at if you look at YouTube and top artists of YouTube, it was Alka Yagnik and Udit Narayan, and these guys have been around for, of course, they're from Bollywood, but I'm saying they're still relevant. They've been around for years and years. So I don't really believe that they're short burn. I guess it just depends on the kind of content that they're creating and how many songs they're releasing and the frequency. I know everybody has out, but people have a very long careers here. Music is not something. Of course, if you want to just be in the glamorous space, maybe there might be a time when that kind of runs out on you. But other than that, I think even now, whether it's 90s tracks or your retro tracks or any kind of content which is older, actually works a lot on the nostalgic feel, and people want to go back and listen to all of that. So I don't really believe that it's a very short stay. It's just how much you can sustain yourself and how you can keep reinventing yourself. We've seen some of the artists who've been around, who've reinvented themselves time and again. Every 10 years they've come up with something new. And as long as that's happening, I think longevity is not
Yeah, I just wanted to make that last point, which Indra talked about, which is reinventing. I mean, you spoke about Sting, and if we look at Sting, Madonna, these artists have really reinvented themselves every decade. If you look at their career, and talking about nostalgia, I mean, look at what Lucky Ali's video did recently. It just went completely viral, and who would have thought, 5 years ago that Lucky Ali is going to go viral on an indie song, right? So,
Nostalgia
yeah,
is a huge peg, and
absolutely.
and that's the reason why even initially, if you look at your YouTube artists like Sanam, etc., they did covers of correct songs, and so what's established, what's familiar, evoking an emotional reaction from you is what will keep kind of coming back, and therefore the whole remix era that we've went through, 3-4 years ago, and which sort of continues. So yeah, like I said, reinvention, recreation, all of that. There's a lot of scope for that. Our entire music actually, the only thing I think for us is the visual appeal, which is very important because we traditionally never just listened to music. We've always watched music because all our music has come from movies. So the piece is something that I think all artists really need to work on and to get it right, because just audio tracks, we are still not in that space where we can just consume just the track and that can go places. It'll have to come with the entire packaging of the music video and all of that. So unlike the West, where you could probably just not have to deal with that piece. So other than that, I think reinvention, working on the whole packaging, making sure that you're uh, experimenting with whatever new mediums that you're getting, right now, which is such a great opportunity. Uh, that's something that the artists can keep in mind. I think they can last a very, very long.
Sounds good. I just want to. I think we're in the last sort of 3 minutes of our chat over here. I want to just get closing thoughts in terms of what are you most excited about? The most exciting trend for you in the indie space, and one exciting artist that you think is going to sort of really blow up this year. Let's start with Sagar.
Okay. I think for me, independent music is about, like Gurpreet said, like a lot of panelists said, it's about, becoming an entrepreneur, understanding what are the mediums that you can really reach out to people through. Another point that I think is very important, which is to understand rights, because if a song becomes a hit, that is your asset. It's like your own property, and property always keeps on going up, and it will make you a lot of money in the future. So it's very important to keep that part secure, or at least know what you're doing with it, right? That is very, very important. When it comes to trends, I think I see a lot of artists building their catalog now, independent artists, so it can go on streaming platforms, and that's a great place to monetize. And obviously, non-fungible tokens are a new breath of fresh air in today's market. If you have a good story attached to it, right, I think it can really take an independent artist places. So I think it's all about telling a story online which people believe, creating a brand, and sort of reaching out to as many people as possible through your music.
I think for me, the trend would be, taking from what the trends are in digital. I think languages, which, last year, post this pandemic, this entire new huge chunk of, digital adoption that has happened. And therefore, a lot of new users who've come online, they are language users. They are listening to or consuming content in languages. So I feel that that is going to be the big trend, which is going to be, explosion of music content coming from, the rest of the languages apart from, the 2-3 which have really dominated. And yeah, artists coming from there are going to be what we are going to be looking out for.
Amazing.
Raghav, your first question was, what are you most excited about? I am most excited about, and my dream is to see the next global music from Indian independent scene out there, and a lot of people, I think, to break the barriers and ensure that the next global super hit song worldwide is from India, and we are just trying and hoping that this year in 2021 we'll hear that story. And yeah, that's my dream right now for this year.
It's great, Gurpreet. I was going to say that, but you took it away from me. Obama
That's
mentioned
why
Pratik.
I
Yeah,
went before
after
you.
Obama's list.
Yeah, Pratik had made it to Obama's list. I was like, go, Pratik.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this new artist. I mean, I'm sure she's been around. Her name is Dee. I don't know whether you've heard this song called Enjoy Enjami. It's a Tamil
Yep.
track, but she's again, like I said, she's sung for films as well as this independent track that she's come up with. It's outstanding. And of course, hearing different voices from different parts of the country, it's just exciting. I think it's a great time, honestly, because while we work, from the traditional media, and putting all these like strict guidelines, etc. Now that it opens it out for all music lovers to kind of become tastemakers, really, to curate and to bring together and to showcase such wonderful talent from across the country. So I'm excited about that. And yes, an Indian star making it global stage would be the biggest kick. So I'll say one more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, all of you, for just putting your brains out there and telling us your thoughts. And I had a blast. I hope everybody watching today also had a blast too. Over to you.
Thanks, Raghav. It was good fun talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was awesome fun.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you so much.
Thank you, panelists. Special thanks to all our panelists for joining us for this interesting panel discussion. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partner, our organizing committee, our supporters, and our audience for joining us today for the 4th edition of IMA Pixels 2021. We will be back next year with other exciting discussions for you with the 5th edition. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We are signing off. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.